Hello, and welcome to Your Vote Counts, a nonpartisan public information service program designed to get acquainted with the candidates vying in the 2022 primary races for mayor, Salem City Council, Marion County Commissioners, and Polk County Commissioners. These interviews come to you through the producers at Capital Community Media, collaboration on questions and moderators from the Association of University Women, Salem City Club, League of Women Voters, Marion and Polk Counties, and neighborhood associations. All candidates for these races were invited, and all but two chose to participate. Candidates did not receive the 7 questions prepared by the League of Women Voters ahead of time. Candidates were invited to prepare a 2-minute opening address addressing their background and qualifications for the office and a 2-minute closing addressing their goals for the office if elected. I'm Cindy Condon from Salem City Club, and I would like to introduce Deanna Gwyn, who is running for Ward 4 Salem City Councilor. Candidate Gwyn, welcome, and we look forward to your opening remarks.
Hi there, and thank you for allowing me to be here. So I've lived in Salem for over 40 years. I'm a wife and a mom. I'm also a licensed real estate broker. My husband and I have been married for 31 years. We have one daughter. She graduated from high school in 2020, so she was one of the many kids to miss her senior year, well, most of it. That's when we all learned the word pivot. So here I find myself now, 2 years later, standing here in a place I never imagined I would be, running for city council. You might ask why. I certainly have. You see, I'm used to being the behind the scenes person. I'm not a public speaker. What I am is passionate about our city. Salem is growing and changing. That brings some challenges. I'm not here to tell you I have the answers. I know we have a great city staff and leaders available to direct and support us in making decisions to solve those problems. I do hope to have a positive impact on our community. I believe I will bring a unique perspective, and I want to give back. City council is a volunteer position. I've always said once my daughter graduated from high school, I wanted to give back in a meaningful way. She was a competitive athlete. That comes with a huge time commitment. Now that I'm not chasing her all around the country and to practice every night, I have time to dedicate to our city. Of course, we're all concerned about the unhoused or homeless crisis we're facing here and throughout the country. We're fortunate to live in a city where so many people care. There are many programs, agencies, and people trying to help. The recent tragedy at the unmanaged camp downtown is just one example of the suffering those folks are facing. We need to get the navigation center up and running as soon as possible. It's the first step in a very long road to healing in our community. Public safety is another concern people are voicing. We're hearing about shootings and violence almost daily. Just last week, there was a shooting outside the mall downtown. We have a police officer shortage. We need to invest more in our police department.
Thank you for that opening, Deanna. We now have to get into our questions, and they'll be specific, and you'll have more time to talk about all of those issues.
No
as
worries.
A matter of fact.
No
worries. So getting into the first question, so many residents may not understand the role of council members that council members play in city government. How do you see the role, and why should they be interested in this race?
City government is where it all begins. And we, as a community, have decisions to make that affect our daily lives and that affect the livability of our city. So I think everyone should be out voting, and we should all care about who our city councilors are and what they stand for.
And can you talk a bit about the role the council members play in city government?
So the city councilors make decisions brought by staff they make decisions about budgets and developments and how money is spent.
Okay, thanks. Thank you for that. So how would you work on communication and outreach to local groups and institutions in order to improve collaboration concerning shared issues and problems?
You know, I have already started meeting with different different folks, Jimmy Jones, DJ Vincent, Dan Clem. And I do think that all of those agencies and all of those folks play a role. And I would like to see more collaboration between those. How to accomplish that, I'm not exactly sure, but I definitely would want to facilitate that as much as possible.
Well, it sounds like you've gotten a good start. So what proposals do you have for investing the federal funds that have been allocated for non-fossil fuel vehicles in expanding the diversity of our public transportation?
Okay, can you repeat that question?
Yeah. What proposals do you have for investing the federal funds allocated for non-fossil fuel vehicles in expanding the diversity and of our public transportation, like electric powered buses, for instance?
I mean, that's the way of the future. We're headed towards electric vehicles of all kinds. Even I was out at the airport this morning, and they were talking about even the planes are gearing towards being electric. So I think that money that's available for that purpose, I'm not sure how much of that money is budgeted for electric vehicles, but I would definitely support that.
So, and the more specifically to the public transportation, and I realize that the council, the city buses, chariots is not a city, a city organization, but would you support the electrifying of buses as opposed to using gas vehicles, gas or diesel?
Sure, and I think that the city, if they could electrify their entire fleet, I'd be in support of that.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for that. And so now moving a bit to the homeless, which you had mentioned in your opening, what are the options for housing the homeless in our city? How do we balance plans for the city's micro-shelter villages with neighborhood concerns, or that NIMBY, that NIMBY thought process that we hear about?
You know, that's the question of the century. I think it's a huge concern, of course, for neighbors. But the reality is, these folks that are unsheltered or unhoused, they're citizens too. We have to find adequate and appropriate places for those facilities. The Navigation Center is a great start. My understanding of that is they are trying to locate permanent housing for those folks. They start with a group of 35, 40 people and transition them into permanent housing.
And is permanent, what do you see as permanent housing? Just to follow up on that, is that individual single family homes? Is it more apartments? Is it the purchasing of hotels and motels? How do you see that playing out?
It can be any of those, depending on the funds available and really depending on the person. I mean, if they're transitioned back into our community and they have jobs, there are monies becoming available later this summer to help first-time home buyers. So there could potentially be, I mean, they could purchase a home or be an apartment. There's many options that way.
Okay, thank you for that. So what are the plans for presenting the climate change task force plan to the public, if you know, and how would you like to see it move forward to adoption or not being adopted?
So you mean the climate action plan? Is that what you're?
Yeah.
So there have been many meetings about the climate action plan and how to put that into place. You know, we're all concerned about the environment, and I think that there's like 183 points to the climate action plan. It's a very long and in-depth document, and there are portions of it that I would support and portions of it that I wouldn't.
And can you give us some idea of just specifically about what some of the things are you'd support and some that you wouldn't support?
There's been talk about increasing the tree canopy, especially out in the northeast area where it's more barren in terms of trees. I would support that. It sounds like the neighborhood association wants that. The city councilor in that area is in support of that. And then, yeah, so I would definitely support that.
And are there specific things that you wouldn't support?
I have a concern about a natural gas ban, because there are so many people in our community that rely on natural gas. I mean, a perfect example is the ice storm from last year. If I hadn't had natural gas at my own home, I wouldn't have been able to cook. I wouldn't have been able to remain in my home. I would have had to go to a motel, or if you could even find one. I mean, the motels were literally sold out in Salem. I had friends that were staying in hotels in Albany, in Wilsonville, because they were pushed out of their homes. So that's a big concern.
So would you keep natural gas as just on the table as it is today, or any thoughts about limiting it to new development? I think that's one of the things that's been suggested, limiting it to no new development would have natural gas.
I would have to see more. I would have to have more information on that.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah,
I think we all do. We all need to see more on that.
I know. Yeah.
Yeah, especially in a community that has a lot of natural gas, heat, water heaters, and cooking. So
well, and what happens to our electric grid if all of a sudden we have no natural gas, we only have one resource for fuel, for heat, and it's electricity? What happens to our electric grid at that point? Can we even support that?
More to be revealed, I think, on that.
Right.
So moving on, what can you tell us about the infrastructure bond measure, if you know about it, that's coming on the ballot in November?
So I don't know a lot about that, other than my understanding is it is a continuation of a bond that already exists. So my understanding is that bond measure would not increase taxes. They would remain the same, but it would provide money for, I think, fire. I'm not exactly sure, to be honest.
Okay, fair enough. Absolutely fair enough. And so what decisions should be made about our city parks that citizens know and love?
Well, we all love our parks. I think for me personally, I don't want to see unhoused and unsheltered folks camping in our parks, because that's where our families want to go. We want to ride our bikes, we want to walk our dogs, we want to watch our kids play on the play structure, and people don't feel safe doing that right now.
Yeah, it's my understanding that the city of Salem has undeveloped park inventory, property that is undeveloped, but it was purchased for parks. Would you support some use of that space for the homeless community? I know that's a big priority for you, is the homeless.
The homeless is a big priority. It would depend on where the park is and how. What type of managed facility would be there? I mean, I wouldn't want to see an unmanaged tent camp in a potential city park.
And so just another follow-up that is more on the homeless issue. How do you see collaboration between the city and the county, for instance, because it is a regional issue? How do you see that collaboration taking place and what's required?
I would love to see more collaboration, honestly, between the county commissioners and city councilors. I would love to see us all sit down and discuss issues. And I think the more input we can get from those kinds of professionals, the better.
Okay, thank you for that. And we've got some more time left. So I do have a question for you about the city manager. Our city manager has left and there's an interim city manager, but that's going to be one of the big jobs for the council. And how do you see that process taking place? And I realize it's a set process that they're going through now. But what characteristics do you think are important for a city manager, and how do you see that separation of power?
And I'm not even familiar with the process of hiring the city manager. So I don't know that I can really answer that.
Fair enough. You don't need to speak to the process, but just because we will have a city manager and there are separate roles to play, the council has a role, the manager, how do you see those playing off of each other, working together, obviously, but the difference between the roles of city manager and then the council?
So my understanding from talking to folks is the prior city manager was a very good manager of people. And I guess I would hope that we going forward would have someone with similar strengths to Mr. Powers.
Thank you very much for answering those questions. And we've got our time for just 2 minutes for your closing comments about your goals for this office if elected.
Okay. So my goals for this office would be to collaborate with, like I said, like other city councilors, with staff and the mayor and the new city manager, get to know those folks, and hopefully we could all come to the table and find, there's lots of personalities there, different beliefs. We all come from different backgrounds, very diverse. But we all have the common goal of wanting a vibrant, beautiful, safe city to raise our families for generations to come. So that would be my goal.
I think we'd all agree that we want a city that works.
Right.
That is great. That is great. So thank you, candidate Gwyn, for participating in this interview today and for sharing your thoughts. Thanks to Capital Community Media for their extensive technology and producer skills used to create the program. Thank you to the League of Women Voters of Marion and Polk Counties for the design and preparation of the program, and to AAUW, Salem City Club, for help with questions development and providing moderators. And thanks to you, the public, for watching in order to become an informed voter. For more local, state, and national voter information on candidates and ballot issues, visit vote411.org. vote411.org. You have until April 26th to register to vote or make changes in your registration. Ballots go out April 27th, and according to a new law, will be accepted if postmarked before or on May 17th. Elections do matter. Remember to vote because your vote counts.